Hi everyone, my name is Rishi Bhargav and I'm co-founder of Bscope. Today we're going to discuss agentic identity. We're going to start by looking at different challenges that developers face when building agents connecting to tools. What are the right ways to authorize and authenticate an agent with an application? What are different things to keep in mind as you design these systems? Let's first look at the state of external identity and different problems that we see when we talk to customers. So we can define external identity as all non-employee identity related topics. When we see external identity, we see customers handling B2C challenges, B2B challenges, partner application related issues, and the last topic, as we earlier mentioned, agentic identity. When we talk to the customers on the B2C side, the biggest problem we see user friction. This is onboarding friction or sign up friction, MFA related friction, all of those as being the number problem. And what customers really ask us, how can you balance security with friction? Can you onboard the customers better? Can you improve the conversion? And all of these challenges fall under the B2C bucket. When we look at B2B side, the biggest set of challenges we see is SSO. How easy is it to set up SSO? MFA struggles, which is account takeover related issues and MFA bypass related issues. And the third part that we see here is role-based access control, authorization, and many different challenges in the Auth-Z world. And when we talk about partner applications or any of the applications facing other constituents than customers, we hear the biggest challenge as the identity silos, which is each of these applications having its own login. The other challenge that we hear often is just the IT overhead of managing different set of tools and systems here. Now, today's topic, we're going to dig deeper into the agentic identity and see what are the big challenges that we hear from customers and how this is becoming an interesting and increased area of focus for us. So blowing the challenges up here, let's focus, put a box around, as that is the topic of discussion today. The biggest thing that we see here is how do you secure API layer? So when applications expose their APIs to the agents, they want to do it securely. They want to do it in a manner that gives the least scope to the agents, and everything can be monitored and audited. And the third piece that we hear often here again, which is similar to the B2B world, is fine-grained authorization and permissions that an agent should get. These three topics become bigger and bigger issues as we see more and more agentic adoption. So let's dig a little deeper into the agentic identity challenges. So to understand this entire space better, let's first understand how does an agent differ from a human when it tries to connect to an application, and what are the different challenges. So drawing an agent and then drawing an application. So an agent connecting to an application, of course, an agent is assisted by an LLM. Let's draw the user here as the user is interacting with the agent to perform certain actions. One big question is this communication with the application over API, or is this using a browser like a human? Now, each of these is possible. As agents evolve, certain agents may use a browser, certain agents may use API. We're going to focus more our attention on the API-based interactions today. One of the standards that's emerging when the agent talks to an application using API is MCP, which standardizes the whole interaction here and makes it much more simplified and standardized. So when an agent connects to an application using API, there are certain things to consider. One is scopes. What are the scopes needed by the agent for each of the APIs? And these scopes could be different for different APIs connecting to the same application. So there could be a set of scopes that the application exposes, but based on the API that's called, different scopes could be needed. So the second important things to be considered here, which is also related to scopes, is what is the right level of agency you want to give to the agent? What scopes are required? And are those scopes limited? Are those limited by time? Is the human approving the agent for those scopes? And in a B2B setup, is your IT and security team approving for those scopes? Or is the user as an individual approves those scopes? So let's actually drill a little deeper into the entire set of challenges related to agent connecting to application using APIs. So the first question that we want to try and answer is the agent identity connected to human identity? We believe that users should approve the agent and approve for the right level of scopes that are needed. So agent identity must be connected to the human identity. Human should approve, and all of the actions performed by the agent should be audited and logged on behalf of the human. So second, as we mentioned earlier, is related to scopes. Each application should expose certain scopes. These scopes should be offered to the agent. Agent should request scopes. Human should approve scopes. And then the agent should be able to perform, which basically also, as we said, is related to agency, or what set of permissions does an agent have, and can the agent use those permissions at any time or only for restricted time. So the third thing to think about is very strong auditing and monitoring requirements. As we think about all of agents connecting to applications, very strong auditing, monitoring, what actions were performed, were the actions performed on behalf of a certain user versus the other user, what scopes were used for those actions, that becomes a very important thing. Now, if you look at all these three things, what we are trying to do here is to make sure the agent performs only with the permission of a human, given the right permissions, and everything is logged. Why? Because a powerful agent can turn into a rogue agent if these things are not thought about ahead of time. Now let's discuss how can we build application and agents with these core concepts in mind. So to make sure that we can keep all of those three principles in mind and design a secure ecosystem, we need to make sure a few things happen. First thing is we need to make sure applications expose APIs in a standard manner and securely. Securely meaning using OAuth as a standard with scope management, fine-grained authorization. So we need to make sure they can define custom scopes. We need to make sure there is fine-grained authorization available to the application. And we need to make sure that agents can discover these scopes and use the scopes as needed. What do we need on the agent side? On the agent side, we need ability to communicate using OAuth. Request scopes. And this scope should be requested from the user. User should be able to grant this. By the way, on the application side, of course, auditing, monitoring is another important piece. And same thing here, the agent should absolutely log and audit for full tracking. And this will enable a very secure ecosystem if we are able to establish this correctly. So in one sense, we need to be able to provide capabilities so that applications can easily expose their API securely. We need to be able to expose capabilities so that agents can connect to applications easily. And both of these communications should be standard compliant, should be secure, should be with the minimum privileges needed. So the next thing I'm going to cover is what are the different tenets of the solutions that you should think about. So let's look at the key tenets of agentic identity. Infrastructure. I will start by saying one important piece here, which we must maintain from the world of human identity, is user experience. We must not sacrifice on this. One very important thing which we must talk about is developer experience. Why? Because in the age when new apps are being built, we need to make sure the developer experience is front and center. And the third we should talk about is the agent experience overall. So on the user experience front, the most important thing here is when a user interacts with an agent, how are they able to give actions or tasks to the agent? And that experience stays with the application developers or the agent developers and the LLM interfaces. We're not going to cover that, and identity has very little to do that. What are the user experience things that an identity infrastructure can affect? One is giving user full visibility into scopes requested. So telling the user that the scopes are being asked for this particular task, this is what's happening, and being able to look at these later on at a further stage. And the second piece is granular permissions or a granular scope granting. So things like time bound. Can the user allow the agent to perform actions only for a certain window of time? Can they have mandatory and optional scopes? So these are some of the things to keep in mind when you think of user experience. And when a user interacts with an agent from an identity perspective, can they time bound the scope? Can they unselect the optional scopes and let the agent only do the task based on the mandatory scopes required? And do they have full visibility into what is the agent doing and what scopes does the agent need? For the developer experience, what matters is infrastructure to manage sessions and session tokens. Are they able to request tokens? Are they able to refresh tokens in a manner where they don't need to do the heavy lift? This is done for them. Now, important piece here again is, are the tokens per scope, or can you request multiple tokens for the same user with minimal scope? This becomes an important requirement. The second is connect to hundreds of applications with ease. Third is review and manage all the tokens. For security. So this becomes the developer experience. So I'll repeat again, right? Infrastructure to manage session tokens and all the OAuth tokens easily. And this kind of should be very, very granular so that for the same user, there could be multiple tokens based on the scope. Connecting to hundreds of applications very easily and being able to spin up tools or being able to spin up agents which can connect to any of the tools out there. And the third is, from a security perspective, review and manage tokens in a control plane or some sort of a dashboard or a UI. And for the agent experience, I think the most important thing is OAuth compatibility, which is being able to connect to any apps that is OAuth compatible and easily connect to any app out there. Because if you think about it, if you are an agent builder, these agents should be able to discover tools, should be able to handle all of the authentication authorizations for those tools very easily. And I think a lot of this work is being done by protocols like MCP. And the second point for the agent experience is ability to request fine-grained scopes, which means only ask for scopes as needed, being able to ask for scopes later on if for a task the scopes are needed, and then bringing the human back in the loop to allow. And there are certain protocols out there in OAuth standard which help you handle that. So for agent, again, OAuth compatibility or a standard way to connect, being able to request fine-grained scopes and request more scopes as needed. So these are the key tenets, in my opinion, that we need to keep in mind as we build the agentic identity infrastructure to be able to build a secure and standard compliant infrastructure and enable all of the innovation that we are starting to see in the agentic AI world.